Hear us in white on W93.5. Around the world, we're streaming live on 3news.com. Download the TuneIn app from the Google Play or Apple iOS Store and listen to us on the go. Coming up this afternoon, Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress criticizes two leading political parties, the NPP and the NDC, for privatizing all state assets to the detriment of the Ghanaian worker as organized labor meets over government's newest proposal to use pension funds to restructure the country's debts.
These two parties, NPP and NDC, they have sold all our assets to foreigners.
We hear from Dr. Yauba and take you to that meeting following what appears to be a divided front for Labour. Also this afternoon, Energy Minister Dr. Matthew Poku-Prempeh taken to task over his lamentation about the non-performance of the management team of the Tema Oil Refinery, resulting in the loss of crude condensate worth $2.5 million. And much later, poor remuneration, lack of safety for journalists, and improper promotion structure in media houses dominate latest state of the media report by the University of Ghana.
The working conditions of journalists very, very poor. It makes the practice of journalism even more precarious than you would think it should be. And I really do think that media owners and media managers must be engaged on this very critical issue.
Away from this, though, pressure is mounting on veteran music producer Hammer to clear the air over copyright claims on Aborampah's 2003 hit song Oyohene, which is a subject of a $10 million copyright suit against US rapper Drake.
Killer cut, blood, killer cut.
This by Drake.
Different rhythm. Killer cut, blood.
And then Aborampah's opening.
Killer cut, blood, killer cut.
Manche is the enigma that is my signature.
We have details as it emerges. A joint suit has now been initiated on the matter. Details if you stay with us for the next 30 minutes. Pleasure that you could be a part of this afternoon's bulletin. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta. We head straight into the details this afternoon, where organized labor has criticized the two leading political parties in the country, the NPP and the NDC, for selling all state assets to the detriment of the Ghanaian worker. According to the labor groups, the situation coupled with low salaries have also affected the benefit of pensioners in the country. The concern follows renewed proposals by government to include pension funds in a new domestic debt exchange program aimed at preventing cash flow challenges for the government. Speaking during a meeting by the various groups to firm up the opposition to the government's latest proposal, spokesperson of organized labor, Dr. Yauba, called for a revised approach to dealing with the country's economic challenges.
We know that even though we have been stable for the past 30 years politically, economically we are down to the extent that now Ghana cannot even pay our debt. These two parties, NPP and NDC, they have sold all our assets to foreigners, so that we now have to rely on debt to develop this country. Our incomes are terrible. I mean, even if we compare with our neighbors within the region, Ghana is supposed to be one of the richest countries in the region. But if you look at our incomes are among the lowest. And so if you look at today, we have Social Security and National Insurance Trust. That has a membership of just about 1.7 million people. Those who are qualified to work in this country are about 13 million people. So what is the national insurance about it? If you look at those who are retired, who are on pension, they will not be up to 300,000. And just a very small percentage are women. And these are issues that we need to look at as labor.
So that's the Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress and the spokesperson of organized labor And part of the group's meeting this afternoon is to put forth a common position on government alternative domestic debt exchange program. That position, however, was thrown into disarray on Tuesday when the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana told us here on 3FM they have agreed to the new deal. Let's hear from Clocksack boss Dr. Isaac Bampoado when he made those disclosures.
Portfolio and then the cash flow that we're getting from the coupon rate that government offered will be able to meet our requirements. So it will be it will depend on the investment portfolio of every scheme. But we based upon our investment portfolio and what we're getting as coupon rate, we are okay from 2023 to 2028. That's if government would not renege on the agreements made so far. This is not organized thing of organized labor. Every scheme has got its investment portfolio.
So that's Dr. Isaac Bampoado. He is the Executive Secretary of the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana. Let's take you now to the meeting grounds where Labour Affairs correspondent Daniel Opoku will provide a lot more details for us as to exactly what's been happening there. And the indication and understanding we get as well is that there's a presence of government as well at this particular meeting. Daniel Opoku will join us with details of exactly what's happening. But here's the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, earlier when he addressed the media in Washington some 2 weeks ago, where he dispelled suggestions of a new domestic debt exchange program which could involve pension funds.
I think there was also discussions about the pension funds which were excluded. We did indicate last time of the MOU that we had signed with them, and we should be clear that in the MOU we agreed to pursue mutually beneficial options within the debt sustainability limits, as we continue that. So those discussions continue to be going on, and we are engaging them. So I'm not sure what the interpretation of that to mean in the second round of DDAP.
That's the Finance Minister. Daniel Opoku is Labour Affairs correspondent. He's at that meeting. Let's connect to him via phone for details. So, Daniel, we know that the meeting has started. What are the issues which have been coming out of this? Because the consent ahead of it was that there appears to be a divided front following the statement by Clocksack.
Yes, that's exactly what you have said, Mawuena. Now, today's meeting is basically looking at two things. The first half is looking at the upcoming Midday celebrations, where organized labor has teamed it protecting income and pensions. So, I know there's a direct correlation between pensions and income. So, obviously, if you receive low salaries, then clearly your benefits are likely to be low. If you receive higher salaries, then obviously your salaries are going to be low. And also, another issue which came out this morning has to do with pension unification. When we talk about pension unification, basically we're talking about those who are not contributing on the streets, those are not contributing to pension. So, for instance, the judiciary, the security agencies, they don't contribute to pensions. They only retire on the consolidated fund. So they retire on their salary. That's another issue that Labour has been looking at this morning. And when we look at the setup of the Act 766, it talks about the need to unify pensions, which the MPRA has failed to do. But most importantly, we'll deal with this afternoon's meeting where organized labor, leadership of organized labor will be discussing the details of the new deal which has been tabled by the Minister of Finance. Already, the Executive Secretary of Clocksack is currently in the meeting as I speak to you with organized labor. So Clocksack has accepted the new deal. The other unions are yet to accept the new deal which has been tabled by the Minister of Finance. And they will do that just after this morning's meeting, based on the briefings they receiving from their various fund managers and trustees. And the body language I have made it together, it doesn't look like Labour will be ready to accept the new deal. If they are able to accept it, then they have to do independent computations and look out their cash flow before they'll be able to accept the new deal.
And so where does this leave all of them? Because Clocksack appears to be of the opinion that they are accepting this new deal. Is there a general sense that it could break their front? Because there's been interviews by other labor groups who are asking the media to dispel suggestions that Clocksack has agreed to the deal offered by government.
Right. Also, whether divided their front, we could realize that ever since government tried to table the DDG, there were some labor unions who, all of them initially rejected it, but along the line, after series of engagements and negotiations, some of them, somewhere, are reviewing their earlier positions and also backtracking. So, for instance, in the case of Cluster will be sitting the nation today, and for them, their position has been made. So, based on what the briefing they'll be getting and what the fund managers will be telling them, looking out for their cash flow and how the amounts will be paid, and also government not reneging on its promise, probably that will make them to review their earlier position. If you could recall, the earlier decision from the DDE was going to have a haircut, but the new bill does not contain a haircut. So that probably could change the mindset of organized labor to make some concessions over there and probably accept the new deal based on what will be contained in there.
Right then, that's Labour Affairs correspondent Daniel Opoku. We'll return to him as and when that meeting ends for a lot more details here on 3FM. We'll stay on matters relating to Labour because the Senior and Junior Staff Association of the Ghana Water Company, they've embarked on a day's picketing at the head office. The aggrieved workers are protesting the appointment of Collins Nunchiri Nyama as Deputy Managing Director of the company. The claim is that Nyama does not have the required qualification for the job, and thus his appointment should be revoked. On Monday, the Public Utilities Workers Union of the Trades Union Congress, which is the umbrella labor union for the utilities sector, petitioned the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources against the nomination of Collins Nyama as Deputy Managing Director. Samuel Amu Kakaba is First National Trustee for the Public Utilities Workers Union. He's been speaking to 3FM.
Here to register our position on the nomination of a Deputy Managing Director, Finance and Administration for Ghana Water. Our position has been spelled out in a petition that we have written to the Chief of Staff, and then we have copied the Director of SIGA, we have copied the Board Chairman of Ghana Water, the Managing Director, the Workers' Rep, and then the National Pool, and the Minister. Our position is very simple and clear. We want to state on record that we are not against the appointment of heads of entity by the presidency. But our concern is that the position of the Managing Director, it's an appointee of the presidency. But the Deputy Managing Director, we believe it's a position that should be filled with people with both the technical and institutional knowledge of our operations. We also believe that the technical people would also help the Managing Director, who is a political appointment, to do his work appropriately.
So you heard there the First National Trustee for the Public Utilities Workers Union, Samuel Amu Kakaba. You're listening to the news here on 3FM 92.7. Away from this, and the Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, has been asked to man up and fire the Managing Director and Board of the Tema Oil Refinery to save the company from total collapse. It follows comments by the Minister suggesting incompetence on the part of TOR's management, leading to the loss of some $2.5 million worth of crude condensate, a deal he claimed he secured to help the company stand on its feet. The minister was responding to ongoing agitations at the refinery over demands by workers for the dismissal of Jerry K. Hinton-led management, as well as the board of the state-owned refinery, told journalists government was doing its part to ensure the company becomes viable again.
There's a top management and a board, right?
But as a sector minister,
it's easy to always say there's a sector minister, and as soon as the minister does something, the minister is interfering. The same journalist around would accuse me if I go and I say I'm going to demand these changes. They'll say, but they're Ghanaian workers, but there's a management. We all have to decide as a country what we want. We live under the type of system that we want, right? I can tell you as a minister what I've done. I gave TOR a new business opportunity in the premix fuel market. That all the condensate from Ghana Gas should go to TOR and use it for blending and premix fuel, right? The last time I heard,
over $2.5 million worth of condensate that got missing from Tor.
That's the Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Poku Prempeh. Let's get on the phone now. Nana Mwisi VII is the Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Security. He's joined us on the phone, one of the leading voices in calls for government to revive Tor. Mr. Mwisi, many thanks for speaking to us. So clearly, the Minister is not happy. He says that he's trying his bit. He's provided business to Tor, and yet the management and workers there are not doing their part to ensure that the company comes back on its feet.
Good afternoon to you, sir, and to your listeners. I'm sure you want to know what we make of this.
Rightly so.
Well, we see a frustrated minister who doesn't see clearly what the subsector is doing. If you come and tell Ghanaians that you gave Tor a business line to tow, that is to refine or convert condensate into premix. It's okay, but then if they made losses and you come back and tell Ghanaians that you acting amount to interference, then we cannot take that. You are the same personality that inaugurated the board into place. When you were inaugurating this board, were you interfering with the operation of Tor? And so there's inefficiencies, losses in the system being supervised by the managing director and the board. You don't sit and watch and throw your hand in despair. You act as a minister, and you must act in the interest of the country and the citizens. You don't sit down and throw your hand in despair. But the minister must act in a way that will put Tor back into shape, Tor back into operation, so at least we can guarantee our fuel supply security. But for nothing at all.
Nana, but how does $2.5 million worth of condensates go missing? It appears, until the minister mentions, there's little to no noise about this at all, and business is going on as usual, and workers are even coming at government and asking that it does its bit to revive the oil refinery. Are we treating the whole entity and all of this items getting missing? Because it's not the first time. There were earlier reports which suggested cables and other items had been stolen by workers, and it appears enough investigations is not being carried out with perpetrators dealt with.
Mawuena, have you observed the pattern that anytime leadership are called to answer to Ghanaians why Temoya refinery is not working, they come up with one excuse or the other? And you watch the pattern. They put in an interim management committee for almost a year. We heard nothing about Tor. When questions were posed to the minister, what came out was that, there have been product thefts, there have been cable thefts. This time again, Tor have sat idle for almost 2 years. You put a question to the minister, and what comes from the minister is losses of products at all. You've not been able to tell us what you are doing to solve those issues and what exactly you are doing to bring Tor back into shape. This condensate issue is an old story. This is an issue that's been investigated by the MPA. Maybe it's about time we ask the MPA to publish their results of the findings they got from this. Whether technical or commercial in nature, we must know. Right. So the MPA, through the minister, must publish this report for clarity. But then the substantive matter is, Tor is sitting idle. Tor is not providing any meaningful business to the country, and Tor is now a liability more than the asset that we expect of it.
Right, Sten.
And the issues.
Mr. Mwezi, I appreciate that you could speak to us. That's Nana Mwezi. The 7th, he is the Executive Secretary or the Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Security, speaking to us this afternoon on the challenges of the Tema Oil Refinery. What's been a response from the Minister, throwing it back at workers there for allowing some $2.5 million worth of condensate to go missing. We'll move away from this and talk some other matters, because poor remuneration, lack of safety for journalists, and improper promotion structure in media houses have dominated the latest State of the Media report by the University of Ghana. The report, co-supported by the Media Foundation for West Africa and the U.S. Embassy, among others, also indicated poor oversight and regulatory imperatives which have contributed to the decline in the professionalism levels among some practitioners. Audrey Gajekpo is a professor at the Department of Communication Studies at the University of Ghana. She's one of the key consultants who worked on the report. She's been speaking to 3FM.
The working conditions of journalists is very, very poor, and it makes the practice of journalism even more precarious than you would think it should be. Media owners and media managers must be engaged on this very critical issue. Of concern is the politicization in media ownership and the fact that it's opaque, it's not transparent, and so we really don't know who is behind some of the media that we consume.
That's Professor Audrey Gajekpo. She is a professor at the Department of Communication Studies at the University of Ghana. Komladum is my colleague here at 3FM TV3. He's been looking at the report, joins me in studio with some bit more details on it. Firstly, highlights, major themes for this research.
So, Mawuena, the research looked at financial viability of media houses in general. It looked at the working conditions, as we heard Professor Audrey there mention. There's also media ownership and regulation, which is also a subject of a lot of controversy. Then safety of journalists, and then media and the national development agenda, professional practice, training and capacity building. So these are the key themes based on which this particular research was conducted.
The questions asked of methodology, how these respondents were sampled for the report.
So interestingly, the reports say they looked at a number of ways: responsive interviewing processes, interpretive document analysis, and then also the use of 4 key informants who were purposely selected to enable inclusiveness of views from diversity of media types. So these media, the informants were from these 4 media types: the GBC, Multimedia Group, Despite Media, and Marabat Radio. They say the reasons why they chose these are: for one, they present a broad categorization of media according to type, that's the GBC. And when it comes to the commercial viability of media houses, MGL represents that, as well as Despite Group. And then for the community nature of radio or media, then they use the community radio station Marabat Radio. So these are the parameters and then the informants that were used for this particular research.
We've gotten some of the details: poor remuneration, lack of safety for journalists and the likes, but is there clear detail as to the way forward to improve all of this?
One of the key things with respect to regulation has to do with the passage of a broadcasting bill. The unanimous decision yesterday during the launch was that it must be passed as soon as possible to put some clarity and sanitize the space. There's also the charge to media owners themselves to invest a lot in the personnel they hire, because it's almost an open secret that some of the journalists in some of the media houses either do not earn anything at all. Some who are earning as low as 500 cedis to 1,000 cedis, as the report found, which is the reality on the ground. And so the charge to media owners is that if they really want to do this as a business and also get the financial or commercial viability of same, they should be deliberate about the investment in the kind of people they employ to work in these places. And then also the conversation about protecting journalists who go on location, that safety of journalists. They say it must be of key concern to media managers.
Right, and that's my colleague Komladum providing details of that report, which has become a subject of conversation. But another matter which has become topical, particularly on social media, is the $10 million suit by some Ghanaian artists against US rapper Drake. Because this afternoon, pressure is piling on veteran music producer Hammer of The Last Two Fame to speak up and clear the air over copyright claims being made by founder of Chaliwate Mensah. It follows an initial $10 million suit filed by legendary rapper Aborampah, who's accusing Canadian rapper Drake of sampling his 2003 hit Oyohene without his consent. In the last few hours, it's been a heated subject of on and off social media, really. My colleague Komlado, who was just in studio with me a short while ago, has been looking at the various portions of the controversy in this report.
With no doubt, I'll give you all my time.
Canadian rapper Drake has been on a roll promoting his 7th studio album, Honestly, Nevermind.
Effortlessly, hope you never dim the light.
But all of that will mean little. Legendary rapper Aborampah.
What do I want?
His focus is on track number 10, Calling My Name, which appears to have a sample of his 2003 smash hit Oyohene.
Killer cut, blood, killer cut. Killer cut, blood, killer cut.
So this by Drake.
Different rhythm.
Killer cut, blood, killer cut, blood, killer cut, blood.
And then Aborampah's opening.
Killer cut, blood, killer cut. Killer cut, blood, killer cut.
That is a subject of a $10 million copyright lawsuit against the Grammy award-winning artist Drake. The Kasiebo hitmaker Aborampah is seeking at least $10 million in compensation, citing all profits and damages in the categories attributable to the infringement, including album sales, downloads, sponsorships, digital revenue, and concerts that Drake performed following the release of a song. Aborampah's legal representative, Imran Ansari, is quoted by the Daily Mail as indicating that since the infringing work was released, Drake's Calling My Name track has already been streamed over 4.1 million times on YouTube and streamed tens of millions of times on Apple Music. Drake had earlier sought permission to use the work, but his request was turned down. What? Co-founder of Chaliwate Street Arts Festival, Mensah has joined in to lay claim to the sample. Mensah is usually the voice that introduces music works produced by Hammer of The Last Two, and on the particular Oyohene track, he opened it.
Killer cut, blood, killer cut. Killer.
Passed up an opportunity to hail Mensah and his art.
Mensah is the enigma that is my signature, and what you hear him do on my works is actually him approving of my work.
And so Killer Cut, Blood, Killer Cut is now being claimed by Mensah, who has called out Aborampah on social media. In a series of tweets, he said, the intellectual property, more specifically the Killer Cut sound, which was sampled in Drake's song Calling My Name, belongs to me, Mensah, and not Aborampah. He noted rights to the said Killer Cut sound were never relinquished to Aborampah and was used by Hammer, producer of Aborampah's album, on Aborampah's song, as he did with others. Aborampah's team are yet to respond to Mensah's claims, but the Chaliwate curator maintains his intellectual property rights and claim over all his artistic works used on Aborampah's album. Mensah insists that although Aborampah has an interest in the matter, he is not the owner of a right and cannot assert it, and definitely not alone or make any demands for sole compensation for its use.
Remix.
The report put together by my colleague Komla Adomu, and with some politics, where the former President John Mahama has intimated that he's been overwhelmed by calls from numerous business persons who've approached him seeking to support him return to power. Speaking to delegates in the Okankwe North constituency, the NDC flag bearer hopeful says he will not be a father for all in fighting corruption.
All the development work that we did in this country, we used only 54 billion cedis. Only 54 billion cedis. By the time we left office, the total debt of Ghana from Nkrumah's time till I left office was 120 billion. Today, our debt is almost 600 billion cedis. And I always challenge them, there is nothing to show for it. Just take Okaikwe North. What new thing has happened here in Okaikwe North since 2017? And even the few things that we were doing, the development projects that we were undertaking in this area, when they came into office, it all came to a standstill. And so Ghanaians are counting on us to rescue them. Times are hard. Inflation is high. Prices of things are going up every day. When we give money to our wives to go to the market, the prices of things are so high that when they go, they come with just a little food stuff. The food they cook is not enough to feed their husbands and their children. And the husbands who are in problem, some have lost their jobs. Others too, because of the hardship, they cannot increase the chop money. Businesses are laying off workers. I know several businessmen who have laid off most of their workers because they can't afford to pay them. And they come up to me and tell me, President Mama, we're going to support you. Even if we have to sell property to support you, we'll do that.
That's former President John Mahama, an NDC flag bearer hopeful, speaking at the Okankwe North constituency, ending this afternoon's edition of the news here on 3FM 92.7. As always, a lot more news when you log on to 3news.com. I am Eric Mawuena. Egbeta Mensah Aborampah is on standby to bring you the very latest from the world of business.
Very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us on Business Daily. My name is Akua Mensah Aborampah, and coming up this afternoon, economists urges government to refocus attention on agriculture as its contribution to GDP slows further in the latest GDP figures. Also, business associations, labor unions and consumer groups meet later today to discuss their next move following the passage of the 3 new bills. We have the details in the next 10 minutes. Please stay. Let's settle for the details now as economist and lecturer at the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, Ebenezer Bugianafo, is urging governments to redirect its focus into agriculture to create jobs for the teeming unemployed youth. Agriculture, which used to be the main contributor to Ghana's GDP, has continued to struggle over the years, with services taking over as the largest contributor to growth in Ghana. Speaking to 3 Business, Dr. Anafo said the only way to solve or resolve the growing unemployment situation is for government to redirect its focus.
So I believe that there is a need for us to refocus and redirect our energy towards the agricultural sector so that we can get the best from our agricultural sector. But unfortunately, it is becoming capital intensive, which, to be honest, it must be led by government. Because if it is individuals are to go into agriculture, they may not have that capital to go into agriculture. So I would think that government should, as part of their 1D, 1F, they should make agriculture a priority so that we don't lose significantly from that sector. You know, in terms of export, we could get more from agriculture. And then what they call it, if we are not paying attention to agriculture, that means that it's going to result to food insecurity in our country. And that would.
And that was Ebenezer Bugianafo. He is economist and lecturer at the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration. Now, business associations, labor unions and consumer groups are expected to meet later today to discuss their next move. This follows the passage of the 3 new taxes aimed at raising some additional 4 billion cedis annually in spite of concerns raised by these businesses. Trader and consumer groups in the past weeks have raised a series of concerns regarding the 3 new bills which are now passed as taxes, including petitioning to Parliament as well as the presidency. However, these concerns were not adhered to. The groups will be seeking a review of what they describe as negative policies of the government on industries and the ordinary Ghanaian. 3 Business will be following on this development closely and will update viewers in the subsequent bulletins. Director of Research at the Institute of Economic Affairs, IEA, Dr. John Kwache, is advocating for a constitutional provision that will check financial indiscipline in every regime. He said without such provisions, managers of the economy will continue to abuse their discretionary powers in fiscal matters and put the economy in a fragile state.
Now, since the current system is not working, we propose strict oversight by Parliament over borrowing and debt accumulation and recommended imposition of a debt ceiling of 60% of GDP at any time, which is generally regarded internationally to be a sustainable threshold. In the US, they do it. If you have to exceed it for some reason, for some shocks or something, you go back to Parliament and seek approval. And then when you exceed it, they give you a time frame to come back within the ceiling. Now, if we had that limit, nobody would take us to 100% of GDP. Now, if this rule is strictly followed, we would prevent our perennial debt crisis. The rule will also force fiscal discipline on the economic managers as a necessity to operate within the borrowing and debt ceilings. Human beings, by our nature, if you leave us, to exercise discretionary power, we tend to abuse it. So that's why we need rules. In fact, that's why we need laws at all. Because if you leave human beings, they will normally misbehave. So in the same way, we think that we should also be guided by economic, rules. And the best way to guarantee them is to entrench them in the Constitution.
And that was the Director of Research at the Institute of Economic Affairs, the IEA, Dr. John Kwache. The year-on-year inflation at factory gate prices for all goods and services fell to 43.7% in March from the 50.8% it recorded in February 2023. That's according to the latest figures by the Ghana Statistical Service on the producer price, which is the factory gate prices for the various goods and services that we use in the country. It has fallen to 43.7% to 50.8%, and there's more in the following report.
The Ghana Investments Promotion Center considers its investor grievance resolution as key to retaining investment.
These figures are in line with the consumer price inflation, which also fell to 45% in March 2023. According to the data, the monthly producer inflation rate was 1.7%. For the sectors, industry recorded the highest producer price inflation of 43.3% in March 2023 compared to 57.9% in March 2022. It was followed by construction with PPI of 18.8% and services with PPI of 18%. With regard to the subsectors, transportation and storage recorded the highest year-on-year PPI of 59.3%. A further analysis of the data released by the Statistical Service indicates manufacturing subsector recorded 46%, a drop from the previous rate of 55.7%. Industry recorded 43.4% from 57.9%, and mining and quarry recorded 40.4%.
And that was a full update of the producer price inflation, which has dropped to 43.7%. Remember, when you log on to 3news.com, we have more business news updates. But that's it for Business Daily this afternoon with me, Nana Akua, Mensah, Aborampah. Do enjoy your lunch, and well, Black Rasta is sitting somewhere around. He'll be back on your radio. Stay with us and have a good afternoon.
Jamestown, old, iconic, historic, a great tourism destination and a proud center of great boxing with numerous high-profile boxers coming out of the suburb. Over the years, this proud center has faced its fair share of developmental challenges. Sunrise on 3FM brings you a special edition of the morning show dubbed Sunrise in Your Community. We highlight the challenges of the Jamestown community and provide a platform for the people to speak out on their developmental concerns to the people in authority. Be our guest this Friday, 21st April 2023, as we host the Jamestown community in a town hall engagement to emphasize the tourism potential of the Jamestown area, as well as highlighting the importance of Jamestown to the national history of Ghana. Come and let your voice be heard. On the bill will be the Gamashi Development Agency, Dio Gratis Curators, Chief Fisherman and Fisher Folks, Assemblyman, Member of Parliament, Accra Metropolitan Assembly, Ghana Tourism Authority, and historian